There are no do-overs in money. You don't get a refund on lost time, a credit back for regret. The only thing you can do is learn. But most of us don't learn until we've lost something real. This is a documentary about the financial lies we believe, the choices we justify, and the high cost of getting it wrong. Real stories, real numbers, and the emotional wreckage left behind. Over the next several hours, we'll unravel the invisible chains people wrap around their finances. Chains forged by emotion, culture, fear, and habit. If you've ever felt behind, if you've ever thought, I should be further along by now, this is for you. It always starts with one sentence: I deserve this. A little treat after a long week. A night out after a stressful month. A new phone after a breakup. We don't call it what it is, we call it self-care. But often it's emotional spending dressed up in soft language. Daryl is 32, works 2 jobs. He's responsible. He pays bills. But every time stress creeps in, he heads to the mall. His closet is full. His bank account is not. He says these shoes were a reward. But they were the 3rd pair that month. This chapter explores how consumer culture has hijacked our emotions. How marketing tells us spending is healing. How guilt is numbed with delivery tracking numbers. And how the small purchases we justify create a big financial hole. Emotional spending isn't just about lack of discipline. It's about the void we're trying to fill. The lies we tell ourselves about what we need versus what we want. Daryl finally tracked a month of his spending and found something chilling. $843 spent on non-essentials, all traced back to moments of stress or sadness. Trina was the first in her friend group to graduate college. She became a middle school teacher and made a solid income. But her social media told a different story. High-end brunches, luxury purses, and exotic vacations. How? Credit cards. Trina was spending to match her circle, people who had trust funds, tech jobs, or rich parents. This is aesthetic inflation. Not just buying to survive, but buying to belong. We see the lives of others and treat their lifestyle like a template. The trap? You don't know what's behind someone else's curtain. Trina had over $27,000 in credit card debt before she realized she wasn't spending for herself. She was spending to stay in the picture. Comparison is a debt spiral. When our self-worth is tied to perception, our wallets suffer. The fix isn't isolation, it's honesty. With yourself, with your circle, and with your goals. The first 5 years after high school or college are a critical window. It's where habits form, where credit histories begin, and where the deepest scars are made. We follow 3 young adults: Brian, who got his first credit card at 18 and maxed it on car parts; Aisha, who co-signed an auto loan for a cousin who vanished; and Dylan, who defaulted on private student loans after attending a fake for-profit school. None of them thought they were making big mistakes. But now, 5 years later, their credit scores are shot, their opportunities are limited, and their dreams are on pause. The system doesn't forgive youth. It punishes it. This chapter isn't just about their mistakes. It's about the silence that let those mistakes happen. No guidance, no financial literacy, just contracts and hope. We dive into how early financial trauma reshapes adulthood, how banks profit from ignorance, and how shame keeps people from asking for help. The solution? Education, transparency, and a system that values informed consent over profit. It starts with trust. A loved one asks you to co-sign a loan because their credit isn't strong enough, and you, believing in them, sign the dotted line. But what happens when they stop paying? You don't just lose money, you lose the relationship. Jasmine, a nurse from Ohio, co-signed for her brother's car when he got out of prison. He missed 5 payments. The car was repossessed. Her credit dropped 142 points overnight. Co-signing is one of the most emotionally manipulative traps in personal finance. You think you're helping, but you're actually taking on 100% responsibility without 100% control. This chapter explores how guilt and obligation override logic, and how saying no can sometimes be the most loving answer. A degree is supposed to be a golden ticket, but for millions it's a chain. Meet Marcus, first-gen college grad, $93,000 in student loans, working a job that pays $38K a year. The math never added up, but no one told him. We dissect the business of higher education, how schools sell dreams, how lenders trap students, and how the cost of a diploma keeps people in financial handcuffs for decades. It's not just about debt, it's about betrayal. And yet, we still push college as the only path. This chapter unpacks that narrative and gives space to other options. Trades, certifications, entrepreneurship. Your worth is not defined by a degree, but your financial life may be. Renting isn't the enemy, but long-term renting without a plan? That's a slow bleed. Kelsey has lived in the same apartment for 11 years. She's paid over $160,000 in rent, and today she has no equity, no ownership, no exit plan. We explore the psychology of temporary housing that becomes permanent, how rising rents outpace raises, and how the dream of homeownership feels out of reach. But it's not just about owning property, it's about owning choices. This chapter looks at how renters can still build wealth through investing, saving, and planning. You may rent where you live, but you shouldn't rent your future. Jordan thought love meant sacrifice. When his partner lost her job, he covered the bills. When her credit was denied, he opened a new card. When her student loans defaulted, he took on a consolidation loan in his name. 2 years later, she was gone. So was $22,000 and Jordan's credit score. Relationship debt is often invisible at first. It grows in silence behind smiles and split dinners. But one person carries the financial weight, often in the name of love. This chapter dives into the intersection of love and money, the blind spots, the power imbalances, the misplaced loyalty. We explore the difference between partnership and enabling, between trust and financial exposure. When financial abuse happens, it doesn't always look like shouting. Sometimes it's hidden in shared Netflix passwords and silent Venmo requests. Jordan's story isn't rare, and his recovery wasn't easy, but it was possible. Love should never leave you in collections. You weren't born bad with money. You were taught, sometimes intentionally, sometimes accidentally. Ashley's mom kept all her cash under a mattress. Her father never trusted banks. Credit was evil, loans were shameful, and money was a topic whispered behind closed doors. Fast forward 25 years. Ashley is terrified of investing. She distrusts financial advisors, and she hides money from her spouse. This is generational finance, where beliefs get inherited, where fear is passed down like an old photo album. We meet two families, one who unknowingly handed down scarcity, and one that made the decision to break the cycle. This chapter reveals how our early money scripts shape adult behavior, and how rewriting that script requires awareness, courage, and sometimes professional help. It's not about blaming parents. It's about understanding the roots of our mindset. Because healing begins when silence ends. The things we inherit aren't always physical. Sometimes they're invisible. Habits, traumas, avoidance. Ask yourself, what money lessons were you taught by what was never said? What debts did you inherit that weren't in your name? Sit with those questions. We'll be back. Every scam starts with hope. A whisper of a better future, a promise that you're not missing out this time. Carlos lost $14,000 in a crypto startup that didn't exist. It wasn't greed, it was desperation. He was trying to pay for his daughter's surgery. Scams don't target the rich. They target the struggling, the hopeful, the ones chasing a better life. We expose the anatomy of a scam, how emotional language overrides logic, how urgency masks due diligence, and how scammers build trust before they rob you. This chapter interviews fraud investigators and survivors, and it unpacks why some people keep falling into the trap again and again. It's not about being stupid. It's about being human. The cure is education, but also community, because isolation is a scammer's favorite tool. It starts with a message from a boss babe you went to high school with, or an old church friend suddenly posting about freedom and building a legacy. Multi-level marketing isn't illegal. But the line between sales opportunity and financial entrapment is razor thin. We meet Melissa, a single mom who joined an essential oils MLM in hopes of extra income. Within 6 months, she had spent $4,200 and made just $370. MLMs exploit emotion, community, hope, hustle culture, and often women's economic vulnerability. They promise empowerment, but deliver inventory debt, damaged friendships, and shame. In this chapter, we break down why the promise is so tempting and why it rarely works. We examine the psychology of sunk costs, the illusion of entrepreneurship, and the cult-like language that keeps people hooked. Be your own boss shouldn't require buying 200 protein shakes you can't sell. Ownership is a dream sold with glossy marketing and zero context. Drive a new car off the lot. It's already worth less than you owe. Buy a house at the wrong time, and it becomes a cage instead of a nest. We explore the myth of ownership in America, how leasing became the norm, how mortgage became synonymous with making it, and how so many people find themselves asset rich but cash poor. Tasha and Brian bought a home at 26 with no emergency fund. When Brian lost his job, the house nearly swallowed them. "It wasn't our home," Tasha says. "It was our debt." We speak with economists and everyday buyers about the traps hidden inside big-ticket purchases. This chapter reveals a hard truth. You don't own it until you can afford to walk away from it. Time is money, but unlike money, you can't earn more time. Every delayed payment, every postponed budget, every ignored bill, it all stacks up. Not just in interest, but in anxiety, missed opportunity, and mounting chaos. We follow Devin, a freelance designer who avoided looking at his tax documents for a year. That single choice cost him nearly $8,000 in penalties, plus 3 months of sleep. This chapter dives into the psychology of avoidance, why we delay, why fear paralyzes, and how ignoring money problems doesn't make them disappear, it compounds them. Financial health isn't just math, it's time management. We show viewers tools to track, automate, and build habits around time. Because sometimes the costliest thing isn't what you spend, it's what you ignore. Emergencies are supposed to be rare, but for millions, they feel constant. Why? Because most emergencies aren't surprises. They're inevitable events we didn't prepare for. Tires wear out, kids get sick, rent increases. None of this is new. But without planning, it becomes financial panic. We follow Stacy, who lived paycheck to paycheck. Every minor disruption became a crisis. When her fridge broke, she took out a payday loan. When her dog needed surgery, she used rent money. Stacy didn't need a better income. She needed a plan. In this chapter, we confront the myth that only the rich can afford to plan. We break down how to create mini safety nets, automate savings in small amounts, and build an emergency system even on a tight budget. Because preparation isn't about perfection, it's about resilience. Who are you spending for? What do you believe you need to prove? When did money first make you feel shame? What habits do you keep out of fear, not out of fact? Whose voice do you hear when you say, "I can't"? We'll be right back. You've already spent the money, or the time, or the energy. So you stay, you hold, you keep paying. This is the sunk cost fallacy, and it's one of the most expensive emotional traps we fall into. We meet Jamal, who stayed in a failing business for 4 years because he'd already invested so much. By the time he walked away, he was $60,000 in debt and emotionally shattered. We unpack the psychology behind it, the need to justify our past, the fear of admitting loss, and the misplaced hope that just one more push will turn it around. But walking away isn't failure, it's financial maturity. This chapter helps viewers identify where they're bleeding time or money and how to cut the cord with grace and growth. More money from the job doesn't always mean more wealth. We explore why people chase higher salaries without addressing financial systems, overspending, lack of investing, no long-term plan. Deshaun made 6 figures, but had $0 in savings. He kept upgrading his lifestyle every time his income grew. The job was a golden cage. This chapter dives into the difference between income and wealth, why your salary doesn't matter if your financial habits are broken, and how job security is a myth when your money still controls you. Freedom doesn't come from a paycheck. It comes from what you do with it. To someone who's never gone hungry, budgeting looks like math. To someone who has, it feels like shame. This chapter examines budgeting trauma, the emotional resistance many people have to money management tools, especially those who grew up in scarcity. We follow Lila, who couldn't look at her bank account without breaking into tears. Her childhood was filled with eviction notices and "we can't afford that" conversations. When she became an adult, she associated money tracking with failure, not empowerment. Experts unpack how trauma shapes avoidance. We explore how fear, guilt, and generational shame make money planning feel like punishment. Then we rebuild, showing how to create a judgment-free system, starting with cash flow awareness, tiny wins, and financial self-forgiveness. Because spreadsheets don't fix trauma, but healing can make the numbers less terrifying. Most of us didn't learn financial literacy. We absorbed financial survival. This chapter invites viewers to take a deeper look at their money story, where it started, how it shaped their beliefs, and whether it still serves them. We meet Mateo, whose parents equated spending with love and secrecy with safety. He carried both habits into adulthood, racking up secret debt while splurging on others. We follow his journey through financial therapy, a practice that combines behavioral psychology with money coaching. Experts walk us through how to identify patterns, trace financial triggers, and rewrite scripts like, "I'll never be good with money," into actionable, empowering beliefs. Because no matter your income, your relationship with money will define your choices. You cannot undo financial mistakes, but you can outgrow them. This final chapter follows 3 people who faced severe consequences: bankruptcy, foreclosure, ruined credit. They didn't bounce back, they rebuilt, slowly, painfully, and with intention. We show what real financial recovery looks like. Not just numbers improving, but trust being rebuilt, with self, partners, and institutions. We break down timelines, how long it takes to fix credit, erase shame, and build new momentum. And we end with a universal truth: redemption doesn't come free, but it's always worth the price. Money will test every part of who you are, but it will also reveal what you're capable of rebuilding. The first receipt wasn't the end. It was your lesson. This time, write a better one. This was Money, Regret, and the Lies We Tell Ourselves. May you leave not with shame, but with clarity and the courage to start again. Thank you for watching. Stay curious, stay honest, and above all, stay in the conversation. The solution isn't cutting out joy, it's confronting what we're actually trying to feel. Healing doesn't live in a shopping cart.